I built my life from nothing. Then my wife and her lover tried to take it all, but one courtroom turn shattered their plot and delivered my revenge. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I've been running my own HVAC contracting business for 8 years now. I started from nothing, growing up in Section 8 housing with my mom after my dad left when I was 12. I spent high school working weekends at a scrapyard and put myself through trade school. I built this company from a beat-up van and a toolbox. Now I'm pulling in solid 6 figures doing commercial installations, hospitals, office complexes, manufacturing plants. It's the kind of work that keeps me on the road for weeks at a time, but pays enough to live the life I always wanted. Last month I rolled back from a job in Ohio around 11 p.m. I'd been gone 9 days straight, installing climate control systems in a new medical facility. I was living off truck stop food, sleeping in a cheap motel, and dealing with inspectors and project managers who think HVAC work is magic. My shoulders were screaming. My work boots were caked with insulation, and I hadn't eaten anything that wasn't wrapped in plastic since breakfast. All I wanted was to grab something cold from the fridge, fire up the Xbox, and decompress for a few hours before the next job. I was maybe 2 minutes into cracking open a drink when someone started absolutely destroying my front door with their fists. Not knocking, but pounding like they were trying to break it down. I figured it was probably Delgado from next door, having another issue with his water heater. Delgado is this 62-year-old ex-Army Ranger who appointed himself neighborhood security. The guy has more surveillance equipment than an FBI field office and treats every minor problem like it's a tactical situation. Usually it's something simple I can fix in 20 minutes. I opened the door, expecting to see Delgado with a wrench and a scowl. Instead, there was this guy I'd never seen before, standing on my porch like he owned the place. He was in his early 30s, trying way too hard to look successful with a designer tracksuit and a haircut that screamed, "I have a podcast." He was clutching a manila folder like it contained nuclear codes. "You must be the husband," he said, not even bothering to introduce himself, just standing there with this fake, confident energy. "I'm Danny. Ruth wants you out by Wednesday." I was standing there in my work clothes, dead tired, and this random dude was trying to evict me from my own house. For a second, I thought maybe I'd gotten heat stroke or something. "What the hell?" I said. He waved the folder. "Ruth filed for separation. Man, you gotta be out by Wednesday so we can, move forward with everything." I looked at the papers. Ruth's signature was on there. "Sure enough," he said. "Yeah, Ruth and me, we're together now, bro. She's been unhappy for like months. Time to move on." That's when it clicked. This wasn't some legal process server or mediator. This was Ruth's new boyfriend standing on my porch trying to evict me from my own property like I was some deadbeat tenant behind on rent. I didn't say a word, just closed the door in his face and turned the deadbolt. Through the security peephole, I watched him stand there for about 30 seconds, probably trying to figure out if his power move had worked. Then he walked back to his car, a leased Audi that was definitely stretching his budget. Delgado was on his porch the whole time, smoking a cigarette, and watching like this was prime-time entertainment. "Nice try, champion," he called out as Danny got in his car. Danny didn't respond, just peeled out of the driveway like a teenager who'd just been rejected at prom. I went back inside and made 3 phone calls. First, to my lawyer, explaining the situation and asking him to review my legal position. Second, to my bank, putting alerts on all accounts until I could figure out Ruth's game plan. I also froze the joint accounts Ruth and I had. She probably had a personal stash or was spending Danny's money or credit. Either way, the clock started ticking the moment I locked her out financially. Third, to my business partner, Brian, giving him a heads up that personal drama might interfere with work for a few days. Brian and I started the company together after trade school. He handles the residential side while I focus on commercials. He's a good guy, no nonsense, and absolutely ruthless when it comes to protecting our business. "Want me to look into this Danny character?" Brian asked. "I know a guy who runs background checks." "Not yet," I said, "but keep that option open." That night, I barely slept, not because I was worried about losing the house. I knew exactly where I stood legally, but because I was starting to realize how long this had probably been brewing behind my back. The next morning, I started noticing things I'd been too busy to catch before. Little details that suddenly made sense in a very different context. Wednesday morning, I changed every lock in the house. It cost me $350 for 6 new deadbolts, plus a smart lock system with camera integration. The best investment I ever made. Here's what Danny and Ruth didn't know, and what she'd apparently forgotten to mention during their little planning session. I bought this house 3 years before we got married. It's a 2,600 square foot home with a finished basement and a 2-car garage paid for in cash, using money I'd saved from my first few big commercial contracts, plus an inheritance from my grandfather, who taught me never to trust anyone with my assets. The deed has one name on it, mine. I never added Ruth because my grandfather used to say, "Never give someone the power to destroy what you built alone." The old man was paranoid about everything, but that paranoia just saved my life. Once the locks were changed, I started thinking about weird stuff that had been happening for weeks. Things I'd chalked up to Ruth being Ruth, but now seemed way more suspicious. Groceries were vanishing twice as fast as usual. Electric bills were spiking even when I wasn't home. Streaming services showed content I'd never watched. There were extra dishes in the dishwasher, and the expensive coffee I bought for special occasions was always empty. I'd been noticing this stuff for over a month, but didn't connect the dots. When you're working 70-hour weeks and traveling constantly, you don't have time to analyze household patterns. Then I remembered Danny's exact words. "We can start the transition process." Like he'd been part of the situation for a while already. That's when I went into detective mode. I started with social media. Ruth's Instagram was mostly the same performative stuff: yoga poses, expensive brunch photos, motivational quotes about leveling up and cutting toxic people. But there were new faces in her stories now. Group shots at restaurants I'd never been to, people I didn't recognize, and a lot more activity during times when I was supposedly the only one home. Then I found Danny's TikTok account. Holy hell, this clown had been running a full content creation operation out of my house for over a month. Not just casual videos, but professional setups with ring lights and multiple camera angles. He was cooking elaborate meals in my kitchen with my appliances, working out in my basement gym with my equipment, and sitting in my home office, using my custom-built desk as a backdrop for entrepreneur mindset content. One video showed him making some elaborate coffee drink with my $300 espresso machine, talking about morning routines that separate winners from losers. Another was him grilling premium steaks on my back deck, explaining how to live like you've already made it. The comments were full of people asking how he afforded such a nice lifestyle. He never corrected them, just let everyone assume it was all his. The worst one was filmed in my office. He was sitting in my ergonomic chair, feet up on my desk, talking about the millionaire mindset while my business certifications and awards hung on the wall behind him. "You don't fake it till you make it," he said in that video. "You build it piece by piece until it becomes your reality."
Yeah, I built it with actual pieces, ductwork, compressors, and 12-hour days and crawl spaces that would make this guy cry.
I started screenshotting everything, every video, every comment, every caption. The timestamps showed he'd been doing this for at least 6 weeks. Always when I was out of town on jobs. Then I checked my gym membership. 24-hour fitness lets you add family members. So I'd added Ruth when we got married. Turns out she'd added Danny as my cousin about 2 months ago. The account history showed he'd been going regularly, bringing different people as guests, racking up charges for personal training sessions and premium services. The staff notes showed he'd been telling people he was a successful entrepreneur and hosting business networking sessions in the juice bar. I called the gym and canceled his access immediately. Then I changed all the passwords on every streaming service. Then I started digging through credit card statements to see what other surprises were waiting. That evening, Danny came back for round 2. I was eating dinner when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I pulled up the security feed, and there he was, pacing around my front porch like a caged animal. He started hammering on the door again. "Why'd you change the locks?" he shouted through the wood. "Ruth's not picking up. This is her house, too." I walked over but didn't open the door. "It's not," I said clearly. "We have rights. You can't just lock people out of their own home. You don't even have a key, Danny. You've been trespassing. There's a legal difference." That triggered a full meltdown. He started pacing the porch like a wild animal, screaming about tenant rights, unlawful eviction, and how he was going to sue me for everything. At one point, he actually tried to kick in the door. That's when Delgado stepped out from his house next door. "Hey, TikTok," he called out, cigarette hanging from his lip. "Yeah, you with the fake ass. Teeth. Half the block's watching you lose your mind right now." Danny spun around and tried to look tough. "Stay out of this, old man. This ain't your business." Delgado didn't even blink. "Kid, I've put holes in people for way less than what you're pulling right now. You might want to think real hard about what you do next." They stared at each other for about 15 seconds. Danny looked back at my locked door, then at Delgado, then back at the door. Finally, he stomped off to his car like a kid who'd just been told he couldn't have candy. I saved all the security footage to cloud storage. Thursday morning, I sent Ruth a text. "You have 24 hours to collect your belongings. Danny is permanently banned from this property. Her response came back so fast. She must have been sitting there waiting for it. Absolutely not. Danny lives here now. You can't just kick us out like that. We have rights. This is our home and our life together. Check the deed, I replied. That opened the floodgates. I got a wall of texts about how I was being financially abusive, emotionally manipulative, and trying to control everything. She started throwing around legal terms like she'd been binge-watching Law and Order all night. I didn't respond to any of it, just let her waste her energy. Around noon, she switched tactics. Now it was all about how I owed her for 6 years of being my unpaid wife. She claimed she'd given up everything for my business and deserved what I was worth for her sacrifice. The reality? She worked part-time folding yoga pants, spent her whole paycheck on wellness, and had never once helped with a single bill. Now she was playing the martyr. Then came the guilt trip nonsense. How can you do this to Muffin? She's been my baby for 3 years. You're literally abusing an innocent animal. Muffin was a cat she'd impulse bought and ignored for months. I'd been the one buying food, cleaning the litter box, and taking it to the vet. By Thursday evening, she'd moved to guilt trips, long rambling messages about how we used to be soulmates, and how I was destroying something sacred. Can't we work this out like evolved adults? I started documenting everything. Bank statements, mortgage papers, insurance documents, utility bills, every piece of evidence that proved I owned the house and had been paying for everything myself. Then I organized all the evidence I'd collected on Danny. The TikTok videos, the gym membership fraud, the screenshots of him pretending to own my property. I put it all in a folder with dates, timestamps, and legal annotations. Friday morning at 8:30 a.m. Sharp. Someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a guy in a discount suit holding a briefcase that looked like it came from a thrift store. "Mr. Johnson," he said when I opened the door. "I'm attorney David Garcia. I represent Mr. Danny. We need to talk about you illegally kicking out my client." I let him in, not because I was worried, but because I wanted to see what kind of nonsense legal strategy they thought they had. Garcia sat down at my kitchen table and pulled out a yellow legal pad covered in chicken scratch. He started throwing around terms like established residency, de facto tenancy, and wrongful lockout damages. "Your client doesn't have a lease," I said. "Doesn't matter," he replied. "He's been living here for over 60 days. That makes him a tenant under state law. Lease or no lease. For free. No rent, no utilities, no paperwork. Financial contribution isn't required for residential rights." I pulled out my phone and played one of Danny's videos. Danny's voice filled the kitchen. "Ruth's with me now. This is our place. We live here together." Garcia stopped writing. I played another one. "I'm her man now. We're partners in this. You can't just kick us out." Then I slid the evidence folder across the table: property deed, insurance documents, bank statements, utility bills, security footage of Danny trying to break down my door. Everything was organized and ready to go. Garcia went through it slowly. I watched his cocky expression fade as he realized how screwed his client was. "Look, my client would be willing to drop any future claims if you just gave him a small relocation fee," he said finally. I stared at him. "You want me to pay your client to stop squatting in my house? It's just a standard way to resolve these types of situations." "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "Danny can grab whatever garbage he left behind from the street. If he steps foot on my property again, I'm pressing charges. You want to take this to court? Go ahead. Just bring better evidence next time." Garcia packed up his papers without another word. As he walked to his car, Delgado called out from next door. "Hey, counselor, tell your client that next time he wants to play house, maybe pick someone who doesn't know how to read a mortgage contract." Garcia didn't even look back. I boxed up all of Danny's stuff: energy drinks, cheap cologne, self-help books with titles like Alpha Mindset and Millionaire Habits. I put it all on the curb with a note: "Closest you'll ever get to owning property. You're welcome." That weekend, I gave Ruth one final chance to collect her things. Text first, come alone, no drama. She violated all 3 conditions. Sunday night, I got back from a job in Tennessee, a 4-day commercial installation that wrapped up early, which meant I was home Sunday instead of Monday. Lucky for me. Unlucky for whoever wasn't expecting me. The moment I pulled into my driveway, I knew something was wrong. Every light in the house was on. Ruth's car was in my spot. The garage door was wide open, and I could see boxes stacked inside. I walked through the front door and got hit with the smell of vanilla candles and Thai takeout. There were multiple plates in the sink, expensive drinks on the counter, and the guest bedroom door was wide open, revealing Danny's entire wardrobe hung up in the closet. Ruth walked into the kitchen wearing one of my company t-shirts like she was modeling for a magazine. "Oh, you're back early," she said, completely casual. "I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." "This isn't an Airbnb," I said. "You don't live here anymore." "Actually, I do," she replied. "The separation isn't finalized yet. My lawyer says I have every right to occupy the marital residence during proceedings. You have an apartment. Go occupy that." She kept moving around the kitchen like she was the homeowner and I was the guest, opening cabinets, checking the fridge, completely ignoring my authority. But I didn't argue, just watched and took mental notes. That night, I heard her on the phone through the guest room door. The room still had the smoke detector with built-in audio I'd installed for security monitoring. I pulled up the feed and listened to her conversation. "Just give me another week," she was whispering. "He's weak when you handle him correctly. I just need to make him feel guilty one more time, then we're golden. Trust me, I know exactly how to manipulate him." She wasn't trying to reconcile, she was buying time for Danny to establish some kind of legal claim. Monday morning, she tried to negotiate over breakfast. "Look, let's just be adults about this, okay? Danny needs somewhere to crash for like a month, maybe 2. You're never here anyway. He could use the guest room, help out around the house. We don't have to go through lawyers and all that expensive nonsense. You want your boyfriend living in my house while we're getting divorced? God, you're so dramatic. He's not dangerous or whatever. He just needs time to get his business going." "Hell no. You're impossible. You make everything harder than it has to be." I said, "No, we're done talking about it." She slammed a cabinet and stormed out. 2 hours later, I noticed several items missing from my home office: the laptop, tablet, and an expensive watch from my dresser. I checked the security cameras. The indoor cameras had been unplugged again, but the outdoor cameras caught everything. Ruth loading my electronics into her car at 7:15 a.m. I texted her, "Return my property immediately." She replied, "Danny needed them for some important business meetings. Chill out. We're still married, remember? What's yours is mine." That's how this works. Wrong move. I called the police. Officer Bailey arrived. A different cop this time, but equally no nonsense. He was in his mid-40s, with zero patience for domestic drama. I showed him the security footage, receipts, and serial numbers. Ruth tried her spousal rights nonsense. "We're still legally married," he told Bailey. "He can't just hoard everything while I'm trying to rebuild my life after he abandoned me." Bailey shut that down fast. "Ma'am, taking someone's stuff without asking is theft. Marriage doesn't change that. These were bought before separation. They're his property." She had to return everything under police supervision. The laptop had food stains on it. The tablet screen was cracked, and my watch was missing its band. She acted like it was a minor inconvenience. "It's just material stuff. Why are you being so petty about objects?" Delgado was watching from his porch the whole time. He didn't need to raise his voice. "Ruth," he called out, "next time you decide to steal, maybe don't do it right in front of 6 different cameras. Mind your own business, you paranoid old man," she snapped back. Delgado just nodded slowly. "That's exactly why you're going to lose everything." Friday morning, I had to leave for North Carolina, a major hospital project that couldn't be delayed. They needed climate control systems installed before patient move-in. I'd been planning this job for months. Before leaving, I sent Ruth a clear message: "Do not bring Danny to this house. Do not test me again." She left me on read. I also stopped by Delgado's place, told him I'd be gone for 3 days, and asked him to keep an eye on things. He was cleaning one of his rifles on the front porch, some kind of military-grade scope attached. "No problem," he said, not looking up from his work. "But I got a feeling your boy Danny's going to try something stupid while you're gone. Just call the cops if you see him." Delgado grinned. "Oh, I'll do more than that. I should have known that wasn't just a promise, it was a threat." The hospital job went smoothly. 3 days of intensive work, but we finished ahead of schedule and under budget. Good money, satisfied client, solid addition to the portfolio. But Sunday afternoon, I got a text from Delgado with a video attachment and one word: "Gotcha." I opened it and my blood pressure spiked immediately. Danny's car was in my driveway. Then another video showed him and 2 other guys unloading furniture from a moving truck. Then footage of Ruth letting them in through my front door with a key. I called Delgado immediately. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "Since Friday night. Full-scale moving operation. Had a whole truck. Professional movers. The works." "Did you call the police? Wanted to let them dig their hole deeper first." "You heading back tonight?" "I'm leaving right now. Should be there in about 4 hours. This is going to be entertaining." I drove back Sunday night with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. 4 hours of Interstate 77, thinking about what I was going to find when I got home. I pulled into my driveway around 8 p.m. The smell hit me before I even opened the door: cigarettes, beer, and pizza. Definitely not my cigarettes. Definitely not my beer. Inside looked like a college dorm room, trash everywhere, furniture rearranged, shoes scattered around that I didn't recognize. And in the guest room, Danny's entire life, clothes, electronics, supplements, even a mini fridge plugged in next to the bed. Ruth walked out of the bathroom like I was early for an appointment I'd scheduled. "You're back sooner than expected," she said. "You gave him a key. He needed a secure place to stay while his lease situation gets sorted out. He moved in completely. It's temporary. Stop being so dramatic about everything." Then Danny walked out of my kitchen, wearing my gym clothes, eating a sandwich made with my food, drinking my beer like he'd bought it. "What's good, man?" he said, acting like we were roommates. "We thought you were staying, until Monday." I looked around the living room. Something major was missing. "Where's my TV?" Danny's face went blank for half a second. "What TV?" I pulled up the security app. There it was. Saturday afternoon, Danny and another guy loading my 75-inch Samsung into a pickup truck. "I was just keeping it safe," Danny said. "You know, the neighborhood, it's been sketchy lately. Didn't want anyone to break in and steal it." "Right. So you stole it first." No response. I walked to my home office. The computer was there, but everything was messed up. The screen was dirty, settings were all different, and the browser history was full of porn sites and crypto scams I'd never visited. That's when I saw the nightmare. My business accounts had been accessed, customer management software, billing systems, client databases. This guy had used my saved passwords to get into my professional accounts. This wasn't just someone crashing at my place anymore. This was corporate espionage. I hit the emergency line for my company's cybersecurity team. Within minutes, I was on a conference call with IT specialists. They were already locking down systems, changing passwords, and running security audits. Client data had been compromised, billing information, job locations, financial records. If any of it leaked, I'd be facing federal charges and lawsuits that would destroy everything I'd built. I walked back to the kitchen. Danny was still there eating my food, looking confused about why I seemed upset. "You got into my work accounts," I said. "I just needed to check something real quick. You committed a federal crime." Ruth jumped in. "He was trying to help. He's been more supportive than you ever were." "Ruth," I said, "shut the hell up. This isn't marriage anymore. This is federal." Danny shrugged. "Bro, chill. I didn't actually take anything. You accessed protected systems without authorization. That's a felony." Then he made his biggest mistake. He laughed. "You're being a jerk, man. Nobody's going to prosecute over some stupid computer stuff." He had that same fake tough guy smirk from his TikTok videos. The manufactured confidence that probably worked on college girls. I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the refrigerator before I even knew I was moving. He tried to push back, but he was about as strong as a wet paper towel. I didn't let go. I squeezed harder. "You made one mistake, Danny," I said quietly. "You thought I was soft." His face was turning red. Ruth started screaming like the house was on fire. "Let go of him. You're insane." "No," I said, still choking him. "I'm just done being patient." I released him and he dropped to the floor, gasping and grabbing his throat. "You're psycho," he wheezed. "Go ahead and call the cops," I said to Ruth. "Tell them how your boyfriend hacked into federal contractor systems." I pulled out my phone and started recording. Danny, still on the floor, decided to confess everything. "I was just trying to find leverage to help Ruth get a better divorce settlement," he said. Ruth stopped screaming. "You what?" "I was trying to help you get what you deserve. You told me you just needed to check email." Danny realized he had just destroyed their entire plan. When Officer Bailey arrived 40 minutes later, I handed him my phone with a recording, security footage, and computer logs showing exactly what Danny had accessed. "This is way beyond domestic disputes," Bailey said, reviewing the evidence. "He's looking at federal charges." Danny sat on my couch in handcuffs, still rubbing his throat while his dreams of being a social media influencer died in real time. Danny got arrested that night on multiple charges: computer fraud, unauthorized access, identity theft, and attempted corporate espionage. Bailey called in federal agents who took over the case within hours. They confiscated his phone, laptop, and every piece of electronics he brought into my house, starting to build a case that would follow him for the rest of his life. Ruth tried to act innocent, like she had no idea what Danny had been planning, but the federal agents weren't buying it. They had found text messages between them discussing getting dirt on me for the divorce. Danny sat in the back of the federal transport vehicle, no longer the confident alpha male from his videos, just a scared kid who'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Marcus, the friend who'd helped steal my TV, showed up 2 hours later with a truck full of my stuff. The federal agents gave him a choice: cooperate fully or face charges as an accessory. He chose cooperation. Everything came back: TV, air fryer, power tools, even my premium whiskey collection that I'd been saving for special occasions. I counted every item against my inventory while the agents filled out evidence reports. Delgado stood on his porch the whole time, filming everything with professional-grade equipment. Better than Netflix, he told me. Should have sold tickets. When Marcus brought back the last load, he accidentally dropped a box of my imported coffee. $250 worth of rare beans scattered across my driveway. Danny, still in the transport vehicle, actually smirked about it. "Oops," he said. That earned him another charge: destruction of property. Ruth tried to minimize everything. "This is insane. It's just coffee. You're ruining his life over nothing." "He ruined his own life," I said. "I'm just documenting it." The federal case moved fast. Danny's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor was building a reputation on cybercrime cases. No deals for federal offenses. That's when I made my move. I called my lawyer, not the family law guy, but my corporate attorney who handles business litigation. He's sharp as a razor and twice as ruthless. "I want to file for divorce," I told him. "Now, while the federal case is active." "Smart timing," he said. "She's compromised, distracted, and her credibility is shot. We can use the criminal case to our advantage." "Exactly. I want this filed before she can get organized." We filed the papers that Thursday. A full divorce petition with a detailed financial disclosure, showing exactly how much I owned versus how much she contributed. The answer was brutal. I owned everything, she owned nothing. But here's the good part. We included the federal criminal case as evidence of destructive behavior that undermines the marital relationship. Her involvement in Danny's crimes became part of the divorce record. Ruth got served at the restaurant where she was working. The process server said she broke down crying in front of customers and got sent home early. She called me that night screaming, "You filed for divorce while I'm dealing with a criminal case. That's emotional abuse." "That's strategic timing," I said. "Your boyfriend committed federal crimes using my property. That's grounds for divorce in any state." I didn't know what he was doing. The text messages say otherwise. "Your lawyer will explain discovery to you." She hung up on me. 2 days later, she showed up at my door with some discount lawyer who looked like he'd never handled a case worth more than $500. "My client deserves half of all marital assets," he said, reading from a legal pad. "The house, the business, retirement accounts, everything." I handed him a response brief, 47 pages of documentation proving I bought the house before marriage, built the business independently, and funded everything myself, plus Ruth's involvement in federal crimes as evidence of character. Her lawyer skimmed it and his face went pale. "We'll need time to review this," he said. "Take all the time you want," I replied. "The facts won't change." Danny ended up pleading guilty to avoid prison time. He got 2 years of probation, $1,850 in restitution, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory cybercrime education. But then Delgado worked his magic. Turns out my neighbor had military intelligence training and a network of contacts who specialized in background investigations. He'd found 2 other women who'd been scammed by Danny using the exact same playbook. Their testimony got Danny's probation revoked. The prosecutor filed additional charges. Danny's now serving 18 months in federal prison, looking at another 2 years when he gets out. His social media presence got completely nuked. TikTok, Instagram, all gone. The memes were legendary, from influencer to inmate, TikTok to lockup. Someone even made a remix video using his motivational quotes over footage of him being arrested. It got over 80,000 views before the platform took it down. Meanwhile, Ruth was getting destroyed in divorce court. Her discount lawyer was completely outmatched by my legal team. Every time they tried to claim marital assets, we'd counter with evidence of her criminal involvement. The judge was not sympathetic. During one hearing, Ruth tried to argue that she deserved compensation for emotional labor in supporting my career. The judge looked at her criminal association paperwork and said, "Ma'am, you supported a federal criminal's attempt to sabotage your husband's business. That's not grounds for compensation." Ruth walked away with exactly what she'd brought to the marriage. Nothing. No house, no business stake, no alimony, no assets. Just her personal belongings and whatever was left of her dignity. The whole process took 6 weeks. My lawyer called it the most efficient divorce he'd ever handled. "When you file at the right time with the right evidence," he said, "it's not even a fight, it's just documentation." Ruth went full victim mode on social media after the divorce was finalized. Long posts about financial abuse and how I'd used the legal system to destroy her happiness. Nobody was buying it. Her own family reached out to apologize. Her father called me directly. I didn't raise her to be this kind of person. I'm ashamed of what she's become. Her mother was even more direct. You're better off without her. We tried to warn her years ago. Her sister Jennifer contacted me through Facebook. She's completely lost it, blaming everyone except herself. Even our parents have cut her off. The boutique where she worked fired her entirely. They couldn't have someone associated with federal crimes representing their brand. Ruth ended up in a studio apartment across town, working at a chain restaurant trying to rebuild her life from scratch. Last I heard, she was attempting to become a life coach, selling online courses about overcoming adversity and rebuilding after betrayal. 0 customers, 0 credibility. Delgado kept tabs on both of them for months. Know your enemies, he told me. That's basic tactical thinking. About 6 months after the whole mess started, 3 months post-divorce, Ruth showed up at my door. It was a Tuesday evening. I'd just gotten back from a major contract in Florida, a $180,000 job installing climate control for a new pharmaceutical facility. Business was booming, my reputation was solid, and life was exactly where I wanted it. I opened the door and barely recognized her. She'd lost weight. Her hair was a mess, and she was wearing clothes that looked like they came from a thrift store. "Can we talk?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "We're divorced, Ruth. There's nothing to talk about. About us? About maybe trying again?" She started crying. "I screwed up," she said. "Danny was just using me. He made me think you were the bad guy. I was so stupid and I'm sorry, but we can fix this. I still love you. We can get married again." I stared at her. The delusion was on a whole different level. "I'm drowning," she whispered. "I can't pay rent. I got nothing left. And Danny, he's in prison. Won't even talk to me. His lawyer said he blames me for everything." "So now you want to come back?" "I want to make it right. I want to be the wife you deserved. I'll do anything." Delgado was peeking from his window, listening to every word. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, turning back to her. "You're going to leave. You're going to stay away from me, my house, my business, my life forever. Please," she begged. "I'll sign whatever you want. I'll give up everything." "Ruth, we're already divorced. You already gave up everything that happened months ago. I can't make it on my own. I need help. I need you." That's when I smiled. "You should have thought about that before you moved another man into my house." She was full-on sobbing now. "I'll do anything. I'll be your maid, your whatever. Just please don't leave me like this." I started closing the door. "Your time's up. Step back, please. I'm desperate. I have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem anymore. That's why I divorced you." Then she started screaming. All 7 stages of grief happening within 2 minutes. "Screw you. You destroyed my life. Everything is because of you. Nothing would have happened if you cared about me." "Are you done?" She didn't like that. She started muttering curses, sobbing, and snorting all at the same time. I watched her sit in her beat-up car for 10 minutes crying. Then she drove away. That was the last time I saw her. Delgado walked over from his porch about an hour later. "Heard the whole thing," he said. "You handled that like a professional." "Yep. Want a drink?" "Oh, absolutely." 6 months later, I got a message from Jennifer, Ruth's sister. Ruth had moved back in with her parents in Ohio, working at a grocery store, living in their basement, still trying to launch her life coaching business with 0 success. Danny got out of prison last month, moved back in with his parents in another state, working at a call center, banned from social media, his reputation destroyed forever. Meanwhile, my business is thriving. I started dating a woman who actually appreciates what I've built instead of trying to steal it. We're still taking things slow. Delgado is still the best early warning system a man could ask for. And every time I walk through my house, I remember exactly what happens to people who mistake kindness for weakness. Some lessons are permanent, some consequences are forever.